What's happening, financial coaches? It's Peter. I want to talk to you today about something that kind of kind of rubs me the wrong way. I wouldn't say it ticks me off, but it's one of those things where I kind of cringe a little bit when I hear it because I think it tends to send the wrong message. And it's not necessarily a sign of a financial coach failing in the business, but I think it's partially getting off on the wrong foot. And one of the reasons that I see coaches getting into this business is they say they don't like their job, that they don't like working for corporate, that they didn't like working for their boss, that they weren't getting ahead, they didn't want to be a slave to a company or whatever it might be. There are millions of reasons, and there are millions of ways of saying it, and ultimately it usually comes down to something like, I just didn't want to work in a job anymore. I wanted to be my own boss, and that is a fair reason to become a financial coach, but it's one of those things, and it's not unique to financial coaching. It's specific to entrepreneurship. So a lot of people say that whether they're opening a jewelry store or a locksmith or a Subway franchise or whatever it might be, right? A lot of people will say that that's why they want to do it and why they want to get into it. But I think it's problematic for two big reasons. One, a general reason on entrepreneurship is that having been an entrepreneur on probably at least four or five different companies over my life. A couple that worked out pretty well and that were sold, and a couple that didn't go anywhere and just folded, and some that cost me a lot emotionally and financially. So there's always some unpredictability to it. But the problem with it is that having that entrepreneurship experience, and I hate calling it entrepreneurship, I can get into that for other reasons, but basically being on your own, being a proprietor of business, being the one responsible for sales, marketing, operations, delivery, product, innovation, and all that stuff, is that it is a ton of work. It's just a ton of work. And I think entrepreneurship and small business ownership in general is glamorized in that you get to make your own schedule and the earnings are limitless. And if that's really what you want, you should probably go into a sales role. I've said this to other people in small business coaching and things like that, but maybe just become a real estate agent, maybe go into life insurance sales, maybe sell exotic cars. There's a lot of ways that you can make money with unlimited upside and have time freedom and flexibility and schedule flexibility without necessarily starting your own business, because starting your own business can be one of the ways to suck more time than anything you have ever done before. And especially if you want it to be successful, especially if you want to give it every chance in the world, prioritize it. You're going to have to put in the effort. You're going to have to snap to attention when it demands. When things get tough, you're probably going to have to pay out of pocket. When things are good, you might get some extra money. But I tell you what, it never stops. It's kind of the yipping dog that always needs attention. And as the person where you are in charge of everything. When the buck stops with you don't have a choice, because if things shut down, or if payroll doesn't get made, or if you don't cover your expenses or whatever, your vendors won't care. They're not going to be there to take this month off, or don't worry about the rent, or whatever it might be, right? The government doesn't care if you're pay your taxes whenever you like. So running your own business is more work than anything else. Now, well, some people will say, "Well, I don't work 10 hours a week," and on some of my projects I do, and some of those I make a decent coin on it. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but if you're going into it saying, "Hey, I'm looking for something that I can make a decent wage, a living wage, and I don't want to put in any more time than I did at my 40-hour week job," then I think most people are deluding themselves. And in fact, most people, the easiest money they will ever make is the job that they have right now. It's work-life balance. It's a lunch break. It's predictable. You get weekends off, maybe, right? You get a certain amount of time off each year that you don't have to be bothered with anything. That you don't have to check email or answer voicemail. Those types of things. So I think a job is actually one of those really important things, and for most people, it is going to be the easiest path to success. My second problem with it is that I don't know why it's so important for you to leave your job. I have been in jobs before. I started in corporate. I worked in corporate for a long time. That's actually how I got into financial coaching and financial wellness, is that, I moved up through the ranks to work on program and product development. And so that's how I got my first foray into it. And so where I am now would not have happened without those jobs. And I wouldn't have my 401k without being an employee, and my HSA and some of those other benefits. And, there were lots of benefits, great friends that I made. I would say I had awesome bosses all the time. And now I got lucky. We don't all come from the same place or the same educational background or have maybe the exact same opportunities. And maybe some of you worked up while you were putting yourself through school, or maybe you went into trades or whatever it might be. So, everyone's going to be a little different on this. But when I hear, hey, I just couldn't stand corporate anymore, the issue to me with it is, what's the mentality? What is the experience, and how are you going to bring tips and tricks to people who are going to be in there, who have no desire to go on their own, right? Who want to figure out how to thrive at their job. How are you going to tell them this is how you find satisfaction in your employment? Right? Because a lot of people, and that's why they call it work, because it is work. It's not supposed to be fun. They call fun fun. But work is work. And while it is supposed to be rewarding and you're supposed to have purpose and you're supposed to be good at it and skillful and make money, there are going to be peaks and valleys with it, just like anything. And sometimes maybe you'll get a tough boss, or maybe sometimes the economy will crash and maybe things will slow down and maybe you're not making the money, or maybe you're taking a worse shift, or maybe you have catty coworkers or whatever it might be. There are numbers of stressors that can affect people's work. But if you, as a coach, said, hey, once I got fed up with work, I just bailed, instead of figuring out, hey, here are some tips and tricks to figure out how to kind of recenter yourself, how to get your priorities back in line, how to look at the good, how to count your blessings instead of counting the negatives, how to figure out how to deal with a problematic coworker, or to find peace with a boss, or to find ambition again, or to take the time off that you need, or to improve yourself and invest in yourself so that you maybe get on a better career track, right? How to dress for success, and how to look the part, and how to take on strategic product projects, and what to look for in terms of needs of the company, and how to think strategically, and all of these things, right? All of these things that I think, as a financial coach, I learned myself in corporate, and I use those to pass on to people who are looking to just enhance their earning, enhance their happiness in their job, right? And so for me, I did share a lot of the things that I did, right? Looking at self-sabotaging behavior, figure out what personality traits that I had that wouldn't mesh well with my coworkers, or in the job situation I was in, or the business unit. How do I think about moving around the company into different divisions that might be better suited, or a different role? And how do I think about maybe taking a different pay, or moving into a different pay grade, but trading off happiness and getting happiness, and being more fulfilled, or having more freedom, or finding something that's more flexible, or maybe taking on something less desirable that pays me more money. So all of these things. But if you're not there, if you haven't done it, or if you just bailed when the going got tough, I'm not sure how you give as much firsthand advice and share some of your own thoughts and strategies and tactics and successes and failures. The things to look for and the things to look out for. So those are the things where, I worry a little bit about people who think that, one, this is just an opportunity, an open avenue for unlimited income and freedom and joy and rewarding work and a stress-free living. And also, maybe had problems before, right? And maybe sometimes the problem isn't always external. Maybe we own some of that, and maybe aren't self-aware enough to say, hey, maybe I should have looked at myself, and maybe there is a reason that this company is successful, or maybe there's a reason that other people stay there or make a career out of it or find happiness or are perfectly happy with their job. And maybe I need to try to figure out what made me different, and maybe look at myself and how do I need to improve. And I think if you go through those exercises, it doesn't mean you'll stay at a company. It doesn't mean you will thrive there. And maybe you do leave, and maybe you leave for a different company. And we can talk about hopping jobs for upward mobility. But it's hard to share those things if you don't believe them yourself, if you didn't try them yourself. So those are some of my thoughts. Leaving your job to come do this, it's not a sign. I'm not saying that that's what you're about, but what I'm saying is that I think sometimes we lack the self awareness to say, hey, Maybe if I'm going to help coach people on their careers, on their earning potential, and how to be happier in life, I need to say, have I done everything I can with the opportunities and resources I have to be happy myself? So, just my thoughts for today. See you later.